Would you expect your dad to divorce your mom and then marry your childhood friend? And as if it weren't enough, he asked me to film his wedding. I'm Eli. I'm 29. Freelance video editor by trade, family disappointment by blood. When he asked me to film his wedding, I almost laughed. But then I realized something. Maybe I couldn't fix what he broke, but I could show everyone exactly what he shattered and who helped him do it. So let's go back to where it started. When my dad told me he was getting married again, I was in the middle of editing a promo video for a dog grooming salon. Picture Pomeranians in bow ties, then imagine getting that call. He sounded cheerful, like nothing ever happened. Like he hadn't left mom in the middle of winter, citing some midlife clarity he got from a self-help podcast and a yoga instructor named Brittany. Except her name turned out to be Savannah. And Savannah? She was 24. I was 29. Do the math. It's true love, Eli, he said, like he was the star of a Hallmark movie. Savannah brings out the real me. Yeah, the real you is apparently having a midlife crisis wrapped in a push-up bra and $10 acrylics. Mom didn't even fight when he left. She just sort of deflated. I found her one morning sitting at the kitchen table in her robe, still holding a spoonful of cereal like she forgot what food was. That's the moment I stopped pretending I could stay neutral. But when he invited me to coffee, man to man, I went. Curiosity's a hell of a drug. He chose the cafe we always used to go to after my football games, which felt insulting, but I went anyway. He showed up in ripped jeans and a leather jacket, looking like a discount rock star on a redemption tour. Savannah was with him, clinging to his arm like a tick with lip gloss. I've got a favor to ask, he said, smiling. I braced. You need a kidney? Even better, he said. We want you to film the wedding. Now, for context, I do weddings. Not by choice, because editing pays garbage unless you're doing ads for big brands, and couples will pay actual money for a cinematic recap of their love story. It's either film people crying at vows or move back in with my mom and sleep next to my high school participation trophies. He knew this. And now, the man who replaced our family with his tan and tight new soulmate wanted me to film it. You're the only one who could really do it justice, Savannah chimed in. Her voice was sugary enough to rot teeth. I blinked. You want me to shoot your wedding video? Dad leaned forward. You've got the talent. And it would mean a lot. Family support, you know? Family support. From the guy who left our family like it was a bad lease. I almost said no. Almost. But then I saw it. A little flicker in his face. Like he thought he'd won something. Like he was still the hero in his own story. So I smiled. Of course, I said. I'd be honored. And just like that, I had the green light. The job. The access. The inside look. That was the moment it clicked. I wasn't going to make them a wedding video. I was going to make a goddamn documentary. I played along. I sat through the cake tastings, the venue walkthroughs, the rehearsal dinner where Savannah's college friends wore matching pastel dresses and talked about their manifestation journals. I watched Dad drink wine like he'd never eaten a TV dinner off his lap in front of Monday Night Football. I watched Savannah flutter around like she was auditioning for Stepford Wives, Gen Z edition. And all the while, I filmed. I filmed her fake laugh. His performative charm. I caught the cracks in real time. How she flinched when he touched her lower back. How he snapped at her for mixing up dates. I noticed how no one from her family showed up to anything. Not one single person. I started digging. At night, I'd go through the footage in my mom's basement, next to shelves still covered in my old VHS tapes. I started logging everything. Timestamps, odd behavior, contradictions. I wasn't even editing yet. I was just watching, like studying a crime scene. Every night, the shape of the project became clearer. This wasn't going to be a romantic highlight reel. This was going to be Exhibit A. I even pulled up old family videos to contrast. The irony wasn't lost on me. Dad's wedding juxtaposed with the man he used to be. Me on his shoulders at the lake. Him building a treehouse with his bare hands. The moment he ran beside me during my first cross-country race, because I was scared I'd come in last. He used to be human. Before he decided reinvention was worth detonating everything. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being angry and just became cold. Focused. Clinical. And that's when I found the first twist. Something from one of those old VHS tapes. Something I hadn't remembered. I was maybe 8. The video was filmed by Mom. We were at my birthday party. Balloons, cake, nothing special. But then there was a moment, a brief one, where Savannah was there. As a teenage babysitter, standing near the corner, laughing with my dad while Mom tried to get us all to sing. The way he looked at her, it wasn't nothing. The way he touched her shoulder, it wasn't nothing. I replayed it 5 times. 10. Then I zoomed in. That was the moment I realized. This thing didn't start after the divorce. It didn't even start after she turned 20. It had roots. Deep ones. Ones that no one ever questioned. I didn't sleep much that week. Not from stress. I was too wired for that. You ever get so locked into something that food, time, and social interaction stop being concepts and start feeling like distractions? That was me. Tunnel vision, baby. All for the project Dad would never see coming. Editing weddings is usually soul-crushing. People cry over matching fonts and complain their hair looked flat in 4K. But editing this wasn't just tolerable, it was therapeutic. Every frame I cut together felt like pulling a splinter. One long, satisfying exorcism. But it wasn't all pettiness and passive aggression. Somewhere along the way, it got darker. See, when you start combing through years of raw footage, things surface. Things that were never supposed to. I'd pulled all our old home movies from Mom's closet. Most were boxed up with masking tape labeled Zmaz or Eli B. Day, 2003. Innocent enough. But there was one tape that had no label at all. Just a strip of faded Scotch tape and dust. I popped it in, expecting to see more of me trying to blow out birthday candles or Natalie throwing tantrums over board games. Nope. It was a 4th of July barbecue. Maybe 2006? I was 10. Natalie was 12. Dad was behind the camera, his usual spot, narrating like a discount David Attenborough while everyone grilled burgers and sipped warm lemonade. There was the usual awkward dancing. Sparklers. Drunk uncles. You know, classic family Americana. And then there was Savannah. She was maybe 16 at the time, babysitting for us while Mom helped organize the food tables. I didn't remember her being there that day. But there she was, in cut-off shorts and a tank top, leaning against the porch railing. Dad zoomed in on her. Not once. Not twice. 3 separate times. And not by accident. Not like when you accidentally leave the camera rolling. The focus adjusted. The framing tightened. He lingered on her smile. On her legs. On her. I felt my stomach twist. I paused the video, rewound it, watched it again. Maybe he was just being casual. Maybe it meant nothing. But then the audio kicked in. Someone off-screen. Maybe my aunt. Joked, "She's a pretty one, huh?" Followed by Dad's laugh. "She'll be a heartbreaker." I ejected the tape and just sat there. No music. No voices. Just the hum of the basement dehumidifier and the realization I hadn't blinked in a while. The dots connected whether I liked it or not. Savannah didn't just happen into his life a few years ago. She'd been around. She'd been watched. And whatever line existed between adult and teenager, coach and babysitter, guardian and girl, my dad had been towing it for a long time. And now he was marrying her. I could have stopped right there. I could have just handed Mom the tape, called Natalie, told her this was the reason she stopped talking to Dad years ago. But no, I wanted more. I wanted to build a story they couldn't wiggle out of. I wanted to show it. So I started splicing things together. Old clips. New clips. Savannah at 16, cutting cake at a barbecue. Savannah now, talking about her once-in-a-lifetime romance, while holding a mimosa. Dad saying, "I've never felt this alive," over B-roll of him coaching my 8th grade soccer team. Back when Savannah used to help keep score. It was brutal. And it was true. The edit came alive like Frankenstein's monster. And the more I layered in, the more I realized what I was really doing. I wasn't just burning him. I was building a eulogy. Not for a man who died, but for one who chose to. Because the dad I loved. The one who taught me how to ride a bike and punched out a guy for yelling at me during a baseball game. That guy? He didn't exist anymore. What was left was someone hollow. Vain. Desperate. Someone who needed to be adored more than he needed to be decent. And Savannah? She wasn't innocent either. She knew what she was doing. She'd been to our house hundreds of times. She used to tuck me into bed and read me Goosebumps. And now she wanted me to toast her at her wedding? Hell no. The final nail came when I found a voicemail buried in Mom's old iPad, dated 3 years before the divorce. Dad's voice. Slurred. Late at night. "Savannah, don't hang up. I just wanted to hear your voice. I keep thinking about that summer. You remember, right? Don't pretend you don't. Just call me back." I didn't know if Mom ever heard it. Maybe she had. Maybe that's why she looked the way she did when he finally walked out. Like she'd already lived through the worst part years before. But I knew one thing. This wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was a cover-up. And I was about to yank off the sheet. The week before the ceremony, I met with the venue's tech guy. Told him I wanted to surprise the happy couple with a short pre-wedding highlight reel for the guests. Something nostalgic. He grinned. "Old footage. You got it, man. Everyone loves the sentimental stuff." Yeah, sentimental. That's one word for it. He gave me full access to the projection screen and sound system. Told me to bring a flash drive, and he'd cue it up. I went home that night and stared at my timeline. It was nearly done. Old home movies. Voicemails. Wedding prep. Interview clips I'd secretly recorded when Savannah gushed to her friends about finally being seen. And then, at the end, a slow fade to black with the words, "Truth isn't always beautiful, but sometimes it's necessary." I clicked save. One more arc to go. Next stop, the altar. The church looked exactly how I remembered it. Stale floral carpet, beige walls pretending to be holy, and that one pew with the crooked leg that still creaked like it was haunted. Dad was pacing near the altar like a teenager on prom night. Savannah was off somewhere, probably dabbing foundation over the cracks in her conscience. I had my camera rig set up in the back, pretending to focus on angles while timing out every second of what was about to happen. It was go time. Nobody questioned why I was there. Why would they? I was the good son now, the one who said yes, the one who didn't block Dad's number or ghost the family group chat, the one who showed up with a camera and a smile, ready to capture the magic. Joke's on them. I was capturing magic. Dark, chaotic, scorched earth kind of magic. The guests trickled in like they were walking into a Hallmark card. Pastor Jim greeted everyone with his standard blessings, and aren't they beautiful together? Nonsense. The whole thing smelled like cheap perfume and delusion. I had already handed the tech guy a USB drive labeled slideshow.mp4. He said he'd cue it right after the vows, as requested. I told him it was full of childhood clips and engagement photos, which technically wasn't a lie. My second camera, though, that one wasn't aimed at the couple. It was facing the crowd. That was the whole point. I didn't care about another shot of Savannah in a rented dress pretending this wasn't a midlife crisis on a cake stand. I wanted the reactions. I wanted the moment everything cracked open. Natalie didn't show. No surprise. She sent me a text that morning that just said, "Don't make it about him. Make it count." I didn't respond. Not because I disagreed, but because I was too deep in the war zone to text like a civilian. Mom didn't come either. She claimed food poisoning, which I'm 99% sure meant wine, and crying on the couch. But honestly, I was glad she stayed home. What was about to go down wasn't something she needed to see firsthand. The ceremony itself was boring. Dad tried to tear up when Pastor Jim started talking about the strength of real love, which nearly made me choke. Savannah said her vows like she was auditioning for a reality show. She even called him her guiding light at one point, which made the flower girl laugh. Bless her tiny soul. Then came the kiss. Polite applause. Forced smiles. And finally, Pastor Jim announced this special video tribute before the reception. Lights dimmed. Screen came down. And I swear, in that 3-second pause before the file started, my heartbeat synced up with the projector fan. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. The video opened with exactly what they expected. A cute clip of Dad teaching me to ride a bike. Savannah clapping from the sidewalk. Guests cooed. Someone whispered, "Ah." Then came a birthday party. Me blowing out candles. Savannah helping cut the cake. Still safe. Still nostalgic. Then the 4th of July footage kicked in. Dad zoomed in shots. Savannah, 16, laughing and twirling a sparkler. The camera lingering. Then again. Then again. The room went quiet. And then came the audio. "She'll be a heartbreaker." Laughter. Dad's voice. Silence. Next was the voicemail. Blown up on screen with the date stamp. 3 years before the divorce. "Savannah, don't hang up. I just wanted to hear your voice. I keep thinking about that summer." The murmur started. Some shocked gasps. One guy near the back straight up said, "What the hell?" I cut to a recent interview clip, Savannah laughing with her bridesmaids, saying, "He always said I made him feel young again. Guess I've been doing that for a while." Then, boom, split screen. Teenage Savannah in our backyard, modern Savannah walking down the aisle. Overlay text, "She knew. So did he." I cut the audio. Black screen. And then the final title card. This wedding was built on forgetting. But I remember everything. The lights snapped back on. Dead silence. Pastor Jim looked like he'd been hit by a truck made of betrayal. Savannah was frozen mid-step, hands still clutching her bouquet. Dad just stood there, mouth open, like he'd forgotten how oxygen worked. And the guests? Oh, the guests. Every face told a different story. Confusion, anger, realization. Whispers turned into arguments. A few people got up and left. One old neighbor gave Dad the most disappointed look I've ever seen, like she just found out Santa Claus ran a Ponzi scheme. Savannah turned to me, wide-eyed, shaking. "What the hell did you do?" I smiled. Didn't say a word. Dad stormed down the aisle toward me. His face was red, the same shade it turned when he used to yell at refs during my soccer games. "You think this is funny?" he growled. "Nope," I said, packing up my camera. "I think it's honest." He looked like he wanted to hit me. For a second, I wondered if he would. But then Pastor Jim put a hand on his shoulder and said, "You need to leave." That part one didn't expect. The reception never happened. The guests left in waves. No champagne. No dancing. No cake. Just the slow unraveling of the illusion my dad had spent years stitching together out of lies and nostalgia. He and Savannah disappeared. Some say they argued in the church parking lot for 20 minutes before driving off in opposite directions. I didn't stick around. I had footage to back up, and a very satisfying email to send my sister. You'd think that would be the end of it. But no, because my dad is a man who doubles down when he's cornered. Always has been. Caught red-handed. He'll just gaslight you into thinking you brought the match. The day after the wedding that wasn't, I got a 17-text rant from him. Started with, "You ruined the most important day of my life," and ended with, "Hope you're happy with yourself, Eli." Which was ironic, considering happiness hadn't really been in my emotional vocabulary for a while. Then came the calls. From him. From Savannah. From a couple of distant cousins who apparently thought family loyalty meant covering up predatory grooming and midlife meltdowns. But I ignored them all. Because I was busy. See, the wedding cut I showed at the church wasn't even the final version. That was just the preview. The teaser trailer. The cinematic appetizer before the real meal. What I was working on now was the full documentary. It started as therapy, then turned into something way bigger. I had all the raw footage, home videos, interviews, audio files, even that shaky camcorder clip from my 12th birthday where Savannah accidentally called Dad, babe, and quickly laughed it off like it was nothing. The signs were always there. I just never saw them until I knew what to look for. I laid it all out like a timeline. A slow, unraveling narrative. Childhood innocence. Discomfort. The shift. The tension. The turning point. Then the fall. And I narrated the whole damn thing myself. Dry voice. Unapologetic tone. No drama, just facts. No melodrama, just truth. It took 3 weeks of editing from my mom's basement, where the old VHS tapes still smelled like dusty summers and betrayal. I barely slept. Barely ate. Just me, Adobe Premiere, and a Vengeance playlist full of 90s grunge and classical requiems. When it was done, I uploaded it privately. Sent the link to Natalie first. She called me 40 minutes later. She was crying, but not the sad kind. The kind that sounds like someone finally exhaling after holding it in for 10 years. I knew something was wrong, she whispered. I just didn't know how wrong. She gave me the green light to go public. So I did. Posted it to a channel I'd made years ago for college film assignments. No ads. No clickbait. Just the title. The Man Who Forgot His Family. And a description. He told us to move on. So we did, without him. It didn't take long. Someone shared it to Facebook. Then Reddit. Then it landed on one of those viral drama subs. And that was that. The views didn't explode overnight. They detonated. People shared it like it was a true crime doc. And in a way, it was. Only the crime was spiritual neglect, and the victim was everyone he left behind. Reactions came flooding in. DMs, comments, emails. Other people started sharing their own stories of parents who remade themselves like broken toys, trying to pass as new. Stories of abandonment masked as self-discovery. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email from Pastor Jim. Subject line, "What you did took guts." He told me he watched the full version. Twice. Said he left the church board the same week. Couldn't reconcile guiding souls with enabling that kind of hypocrisy. Said he'd always had doubts about the way Dad moved on, but didn't have proof until now. A week later, Savannah deleted her Instagram. Dad deleted his Facebook. 2 weeks later, I got served. Yep, my dad filed a defamation suit. Claimed I knowingly distributed false and damaging material with intent to harm reputation and cause emotional distress. Which, hilarious, considering I was just showing what actually happened. But sure, Dad. Tell it to the judge. My lawyer was a friend of Natalie's, a sharp-tongued, stone-faced woman who read through the case file and just said, "Oh, honey, he doesn't stand a chance." We filed a countersuit for harassment and legal retaliation. Turns out, having 20-plus hours of time-stamped video, metadata, and witness statements makes for a very compelling case. The lawsuit didn't even make it to court. It got tossed out. His lawyer dropped him 2 days later. He sent me one final message after that. "I hope one day you realize how much pain you've caused." And that was when I realized something. He still didn't get it. He still thought he was the victim. He didn't care that he'd ripped our family apart like a damn lottery ticket. He didn't care that Mom still cried when she passed his old toothbrush in the drawer. Or that Natalie changed her last name. Or that I spent 2 years thinking I was just too sensitive to see how happy he was. No, all that mattered to him was his own image. So yeah, I aired the documentary. I burned the fairy tale. And I let him sit in the ashes.